Hello there, and welcome to Lesson 3 of Nutrition and Digestion. In this lesson, we're going to be focusing on reading and understanding nutritional charts. Our keywords today are food label, nutritional chart, as well as guideline daily amount. Food labels are, of course, referring to the labels on your consumer goods or the food packages that you get that give the nutritional charts or nutritional details for that item of food, as well as the guideline daily amount is the NHS recommended guideline for that nutritional group. So please take a moment and pause the video here to complete the first knowledge check of this lesson. All finished? Good. Let's take it up. How many nutrient groups are there? As we learned in Lesson 2, there are 7 nutrient groups. The names of the nutrient groups are proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, vitamins, minerals, water, and fiber. 3. Suggest which group is needed as a source of energy. Carbohydrates and lipids are our main sources of energy, where carbohydrates are going to be the most prominent source of energy. 4. Suggest a food that would provide protein. We have a big range here. The main ones, of course, being meats, fish, nuts, and seeds. 5. State the functions of protein. Proteins are important for growth and repair of cells and tissues. So we need proteins for our bodies to be able to grow, but also so that they're able to repair themselves when, say, we get injured. 6. Suggest which food group helps food move through the intestine. This is fiber. Fiber is something or a nutrient that comes from vegetables and fruits, and it helps our digestive tract move along. 7. State the difference between starches and sugars. Both are carbohydrate groups. However, sugars are soluble in the blood, while starches are not. This allows sugars to be broken down much quicker during digestion than starches. And lastly, 8. How many liters of water should an adult drink each day? The recommended guideline is about 8 cups, which translates roughly to 2.2 liters of water. It is important to stay hydrated as it ensures that our body is able to maintain optimal and efficient function. So, moving on to our overview. We're going to recall the names and the functions of the nutritional groups, but we're going to add a little bit more in this lesson. We're going to use nutritional charts to identify the quantities of different nutrient groups in different foods. And I've made a note for nutritional charts here. This is also known as the nutrition facts table or the food label found on the side of consumer packages, the foods that you buy from the store. So things like your cereal boxes, your sweets, and even your cans of Coca-Cola will have these nutritional facts or food labels that tell you a brief breakdown of what you will find in that product. Nutritional charts. The 7 main nutrient groups are needed in certain amounts in your diet to ensure a healthy balance. We say the food plate last lesson, which showed us how much of each type of food we should have each day, or the food guide, would be a useful source of nutritional information and can be found on the food label. It is usually a chart which tells you how much of each nutritional group is in one serving or 100 grams of that product. So let's take a look at this nutritional chart below. As we can see here, it's broken down into a bunch of different categories. We have our typical values, which are energies in kilojoules, energy in calories, but then we can see our primary nutrients. We have proteins, carbohydrates of which are sugars. Next we have fat, and then saturated fats, fiber, sodium, and lastly, salt. We have to keep in mind why they break it down as such. As we know from last lesson, sugars are not always the healthiest form of carbohydrate. So Most companies now are required to put the amount of sugar that they add into their products. Additionally, saturated fats are the worst type of fats, as they can lead to possible health issues down the line, primarily leading to heart disease. On the top column here, we can see the breakdown per 100 grams compared to per entire package, as well as the GDA, which is the guideline daily amount for an adult, and how much each package actually compares to an adult's recommended intake. So, if we look at the questions here, identify which nutritional groups are missing from this table. We have 7 main groups. Of course, proteins, carbohydrates, fats or lipids, fiber, sodium, vitamins, and minerals. So the 3 that are missing are actually minerals, vitamins, and water. And to extend this question, we should think of why they're missing. And the reason simply is there is not an actual significant amount of these 3 nutrients in this food. So, are they missing? There is a non-significant amount of these nutrients in the food. So 2, state how much saturated fat this container contains at 100 grams. So we need to use our table and read it to find out how much saturated fat is in 100 grams of this product. So first we find saturated fat, which is right here, and per 100 grams. So we go down our table and we can see that it's 2.7 grams of saturated fats. Lastly, calculate the amount of saturated fat you can have in the rest of your daily intake according to the GDA. So our recommended intake is about 20 grams, whereas the saturated fats in this product is 2.7 grams. They give us the percentage as well per pack. However, we just need to take away 20 grams from 2.7 grams, and we get that we have 17.3 grams of saturated fat if we are to only intake 100 grams, or conversely, it would be 11.9 grams of saturated fat if you eat the entire package. So, food labels give us a lot of information about what we're actually eating and how this would translate to our daily recommended intake values, how much we should eat. Take a look at this clip below and see how it explains. Take a look at this clip as it explains how we use nutritional charts in our day-to-day lives. Okay, so after you watching that video, let's take a look at this next nutritional chart. We're going to complete the task below, and it involves looking at our favorite McDonald's meals. Here we have the breakdown of a bunch of different foods that we might like to eat. Of course, we have our Big Mac, the Big Tasty, large French fries, medium French fries, McFlurries, as well as regular and large colas. And this is broken down to a bunch of different categories or nutrients. We have our energy value in calories. We have the amount of protein in grams, the amount of sugar, fats, saturated fats, and lastly, salt. As we can already see, when it comes to sugars, no doubt, large colas have a large amount of sugar, as well as the McFlurry, which is basically just ice cream. But something that we wouldn't think is that a Big Mac actually has almost 12 grams of sugar. And most people would not assume that a burger, which would just be beef, as well as bread and maybe lettuce, would have this much sugar. But sugar is an additive to foods to make it, of course, taste better. It doesn't mean it's good for you, but that's why we add it. We're going to complete this table using the nutritional chart above, and we're going to compare it with the recommended daily amount for our boys, girls, as well as in protein, sugar, fat, saturated fat, and salts. So please take a moment to complete this table. Alright, now that you're finished, let's take a look at the filled-in table and compare it to the recommended daily amounts provided by the NHS. If we were to eat our typical meal from McDonald's, a big tasty, so a sandwich, a large fries, a Smarties McFlurry for dessert, as well as a large Coca-Cola as a drink, we can see that we almost hit 1,800 calories. Out of our recommended daily intake, whether you're an adult, boy, or a girl, that is almost about 80% of how many calories you need in a day. Additionally, for protein, we hit almost 55 grams at 54.5, where the recommended... Next we have protein, where we hit 54.5 grams out of our 45, which is fine actually, it isn't too much higher, and protein is required for our cells to be able to grow and repair themselves. Next, however, we have sugar. At 106 grams, out of our 100 grams of recommended daily amount, that is absurd, simply because this is only one meal out of the day. The amount of sugar you take, as well as what you probably eat in your typical diet from sweets or whatever you snack on, you will definitely be higher than this amount over the course of a day. Additionally, with fats, we have 80 grams of fats, where the recommended daily amount is 70. Saturated fats, again, 31.3, where the recommended is 20. And then for salt is 5.78 grams, where the recommended daily amount is 6. And we have to keep in mind this is one meal. In one meal, we have almost our entire recommended daily amount. And if we were to continue eating McDonald's at this amount, of course, we can see how it'll start becoming unhealthy. It isn't our only meal of the day. We end up eating other things, and therefore we end up going much higher than the recommended daily amount to maintain a healthy diet. Something to keep in mind as well is, of course, things in moderation are more reasonable. If we have McDonald's every day, we can understand how unhealthy it would be, but when we look at these numbers, it kind of pushes the idea in which we shouldn't have McDonald's every day. We should find better ways to manage our diet, and we'll touch upon that in a future lesson. But moving on, the last activity of this lesson is one in which you are to work on your own. Use this nutritional chart to put together a healthier meal than the first. Think of foods that you might like to eat that you would be interested in looking up their nutritional details. Things like fruits, veg, and other products that you may want to almost shape your diet around. So please do this as extra work at home. Having completed your meal comparison above, you should make down some notes in which you can make switches in order to make healthier food choices in the future. And with that, let's finish the last knowledge and application questions for this lesson. Take a moment to pause the video and answer these questions on your own before we take it up. Alright, now that you're finished, let's take it up. So 1, name the 7 nutrient groups. We should be familiar with this now. We have proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, vitamins, minerals, water, and fiber. 2, state which group is for the repair of cells. It would be the proteins. 3, state 2 foods high in fiber. We have fruits and veg. 4, state 4 foods high in starchy carbohydrates. We have pasta, rice, bread, and cereals. 5, suggest what GDA stands for. GDA is the guideline daily amount recommended by the NHS. 6, state the volume of water an adult should drink daily. It's about 2.2 liters. Lastly, we're going to go through this together, and we're going to read through this label. Question 1, state how much energy one bar provided in calories. So it gives us, again, per 100 grams, and to the right we have our per 30 gram bar. So in one bar, this will give us 109 calories. Question 2, state how much energy one bar provides in kilojoules. So again, we take a look at our table, and it says right underneath 455 kilojoules. C, calculate how much sugar 2 bars would contain. So in 1 bar, we would have roughly 13 grams of sugar. So in 2 bars, we just multiply this number by 2, we would have 26 grams of sugar. D, calculate how much protein 1 kilogram would contain. So we find proteins at per 100 grams is 18.4. We multiply 100 grams by 10 to make it equal 1 kilogram. And so we also multiply protein content by 10. We have 184 grams of proteins. Lastly, the GDA of sodium is 2.2 grams. If you ate 3 bars, how much more sodium could you have that day according to the GDA? So each bar provides us with 0.1 grams of sodium. If we have 3 bars, we multiply this number by 3, which would be 0.3 grams. Therefore, 2.2 grams take away 0.3 grams is equal to 1.9 grams of sodium for the rest of the day. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in lesson 4. For your last activity, just look at the label above and that's fine. Thank you for listening to Lesson 3 of Nutrition and Digestion, and we'll see you again for Lesson 4. Take care.